Order. Would you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up is roll call. Would you start voting, please? Sharon?
All councilors present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up is the agenda approval. Do we have any additions or deletions from the agenda, Sharon?
No, not that I'm aware.
Just to clarify as well, we did have posted over the weekend an item related to the policies. We had some last-minute changes, so that has been removed and will be on the next agenda. But in regards to the agenda that's been posted since Monday, or Tuesday, this is an accurate agenda with no changes.
Thank you, Heather. I'll entertain a motion.
I motion we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Start voting, please. Sharon?
Motion carries unanimously.
Next up is citizen comment. Alamosa City Council welcomes your comments. Citizens wishing to speak may obtain and complete a speaker card through the city clerk at the start of the meeting. This evening we have no audience participation as far as that goes, so we will move on to ceremonial items, and this evening we have the introduction of our K-9 officer and K-9. Thank you, Chief Oakes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, Council, tonight we're here to introduce to you. First, I want to take Kinshu is here. He's our new K-9 officer, and he was the one that couldn't be present when we did the promotion ceremony. So he's going to tell you a little bit about himself for the promotion as well as the K-9 program and introduce Samantha to you.
Hi. As Chief said, I'm Tate Kinshu, recently promoted to corporal. I've been with the police department for about 4 years now. I hold multiple roles for the police department. I'm on the SWAT team, investigations team, field training officer, and recently given the opportunity to be the K-9 handler, where got to meet my new partner, Samantha, or we call her Sammy for short. Sammy's a 15-month-old Dutch Shepherd. She single-purpose dog right now. She trained on narcotics, passive alert dog, which means she doesn't bark or scratch. She sits or stares at where she thinks the drugs are. Right now, we went through a 6-week training program. We were able to certify within 4 weeks. During my certification with her, I trained with Alliance K-9 up in Colorado Springs, and we did live training exercises there where we'd go to actual schools, Walmart, Home Depot, places like that. And she actually got her first bust on my first live search at a middle school up there. She found spice in an 8th grader's locker. So really, really good deal to be on her first thing. When we got back to the road, her first day on the job, she got a big bust. She searched a vehicle, and inside the vehicle there was 70 grams of heroin, about a gram of meth, and $4 grand in cash. So she loves working. She loves doing her job. She's fascinated right now.
I noticed she's fascinated with our city manager.
Yeah. Yep. But she's wearing this is a level 2 bulletproof vest. It's bullet resistant and knife resistant, just under the vest that we wear. So we wear a level 3. She's got a level 2 on. And it's got Samantha across her back, and then she has a police department patch on her chest. I can bring her out to.
Wow. Let me see. Very good.
Any questions?
Oh.
I can do a little demo for you.
Very good. Good. Thank you, Corporal.
I'm not sure where Amber was able to get it through a grant.
You might want to explain that to.
Yeah, so the vest was actually obtained by Officer Garcia, one of our patrol officers. She was able to apply for a grant, and she actually got it donated to us. Very expensive vest, and we're very fortunate to get that donated to us.
Very nice. Very nice. Very good.
Do you want to tell Council Amber where you were able to get that and how you went through the process?
Actually, me and Captain Estes, we actually found the grant available on Facebook. So we liked the link, and we emailed the lady that was in charge for the vest, and we were able to get it for free. So it was good. It was a good deal for us.
Good job. Well,
It's awesome, too.
Yeah, that's
well,
Thank you, Amber.
well, thank you very much and welcome. You know, there's a major interest in our community about making sure that drugs are, you know, are kept off the street, or we're trying to do whatever we can. And so welcome to you and Samantha. And we hope you you get out there and start, you know, alleviating the problem that we're all facing on a daily basis. Councilor Coleman?
Officer Kenshu, I want to commend you for moving up the ranks so quickly in corporal, and I would like to thank you and Samantha because due to your efforts, that's what, 70 grams of heroin off the street to where it's not going to be in the veins of the bloodstreams of any of our citizens. So keep up the great work that you're doing. I appreciate that.
Councilor Stefano?
Congratulations on your assignment. She's a beautiful dog, long time coming. We need her here. This is something we've always needed here since the task force kind of, I don't know. But anyway, welcome to the community, and man, it's great to see you and the dog. It's awesome.
Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Congratulations on the promotion. That's first off. And then thanks for the commitment you made to care for the dog. That's, I mean, there's a huge commitment, and not everyone could do that. So I really appreciate that you took on the responsibility to train and to house the dog. And it's going to do wonders for our community. And I appreciate you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. It was a lifelong dream for me to be a canine officer, so it really means a lot I got this opportunity.
Thank you.
I had a comment also. I heard that the Sheriff's Department also has purchased a dog. And
The Sheriff's Department had a dog prior to Robert taking over.
Okay.
The dog was kind of stagnant for a couple of years. They obtained that through a grant several years ago. Their canine handler also went through the same program that Tate went through. So they're trained by the same people. They're trained in the same disciplines. And then Monte Vista also has a dog, so we're going to team the three up. They're going to train
Good.
together. They're going to work together. And we're going to work with the three departments to try to alleviate some of the overtime and things like that. So I've got commitments from the chief and the sheriff as well.
That's great, because as mentioned earlier, we do have a problem with drugs, not only here in Alamos, but in the San Luis Valley. And the faster we can attack it, whichever way we can, is the better to protect our kids and stuff. So thank you.
Councilor Gillespie?
Yes, Corporal, just want to thank you for your work. How does the dog fit in with your family life?
Fits in really well. She loves my wife, and I
Very
have
good.
another dog that she gets along with, and a cat that she's best friends with, which is surprisingly. So she gets along really well with my family.
Very good, thank you.
Councilor Vihil?
Thank you, Mayor. Corporal, again, thank you for your commitment to Sam. Can you just, I know she's new, but can you give us, what's the daily life for her? What is schedule? What does she do?
Well, wake up in the morning and we take her outside, break her, feed her, and then break her needs to give her a restroom break. Give her multiple breaks throughout the day. I was able to we were fortunate enough to get permission from the Alamosa High School to use their football field for practice running. So it's a fenced-in area. There's no deer feces or anything on there, so she doesn't get distracted or eat any other dog feces or anything like that. So she goes and she works out there, and she rides with me in the patrol car, and traffic stops, I'll get her out and we'll go around the car, or if we get called to help out with anybody, we're more than willing. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. She's a great asset, and I believe that she's going to make a huge impact in the city.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, the chief is still there, so we've got a life-saving award presentation this evening.
Well,
Thank you,
again,
Chief.
You're welcome. Again, tonight we're in front of you. We get to show you how our training and dedication to the community and the public is paying off. Sergeant Spangler is going to actually do the presentation, give him exposure to you all, and he knows most about the incident, so I'm going to let him speak about it. And instead of me reading off a piece of paper like we have in the past, I'm trying to change things up and let people get some exposure time in front of you all so you can see them and get to know the officers themselves. So, Sergeant Spangler.
Sergeant Spangler, I was Officer Hadley's, come up here. I was his sergeant on the day I'm going to talk about. So on December 18th at approximately 12:05, just a little bit after noon, PD cars were dispatched at 2206 Oliver Avenue, apartment A, for an unconscious male party who was not breathing. Officer Hadley was first on scene and found a male party on the kitchen floor, unconscious, not breathing, and blue in color. I was approximately 10 seconds behind Officer Hadley, and by the time I had even arrived inside, Officer Hadley had this male party laid out on the floor and was already starting chest compressions. The male party regained consciousness and started breathing temporarily, and we were waiting for a secondary ambulance unit, so it took about 10 or 15 minutes for the ambulance to get there. We got the male party conscious and breathing within a couple minutes, but as we were observing him, he lost consciousness and stopped breathing again. And without any hesitation, I observed Officer Hadley jump right back into chest compressions and continue until the medics arrived approximately 10 minutes later. Once the medics arrived, Officer Hadley assisted in loading the male party, and then we had Community Resource Officer Zach Cherney, who's standing in the back also. He helped out by driving the ambulance so the two medics could work on this male party. Once I got to the hospital, the male party was conscious, breathing, coherent. I mean, everything was fine. I spoke to the attending physician at the ER that day, and she stated, basically, Officer Hadley's actions in this situation was the key element in saving the male party's life. And just something else I want to add is Officer Hadley was on his last week of the training program, so he was still training with us. And he carried himself as if he was a veteran officer already. So as Officer Hadley's supervisor during this incident, I just want to state that I was proud of the way he handled himself in such a critical incident. So on behalf of the Alamosa Police Department, I'm presenting Officer Hadley with the Life Saving Award.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Council, Mayor. So I would like to thank the support that I have from my department, my FTO, Corporal Pashon, my Sergeant Spangler, Chief Oaks, and Captain Mestis. They all stood behind me. Like my sergeant said, when I got there, my training kicked in right away. As soon as I saw blue in his face, the only thing that came in my mind was everything that Zach taught me. If anything I could say is that Chief Oaks and Captain Messes are big on us training. So I would have to give a lot of props to them for supplying me with the training and the skills to be able to go out and do my job. Every day we go out, we don't know what we're going to come across. You know, we don't know if we're going to go home. So that situation for me was to try to save somebody's life the best way that I can. And I know I can't save everybody, but I'm going to do my best to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Hadley. Council, do we have any comments for Officer Hadley?
Sorry about that.
Councilor Coleman.
Wow, it seems like we just saw you last month up here, huh?
Yes, sir, you did.
I tell you, you made a huge impact in a short time frame, and You might not be able to save everyone's life, but you save that one, and that means a lot. So keep up the great work that you're doing, and the entire staff and team keep up the work that you're doing in the community as well. It's making a difference. Keep it up.
All right, sir, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Gillespie?
Very proud of you and very proud of our police department. I think it shows we have excellent training in our police department and excellent leadership. So thank you very much to all of you.
Councilor Diego?
Officer Hanley, you talk about the training, but it's the individual himself, you know, the dedication to your profession, and I thank you very much for that.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think Charlie just said it. It's the individual, you know, we can train people to death, and it's the individuals, and our whole police department is full of those type individuals. And just proud of the entire department. The training you guys go through is incredible. I'm sure it's not the funnest thing to do, but you guys do it. You do a terrific job, and you protect our citizens, and that's what it's about. Thanks a lot.
Councilor Stefano?
I also want to thank you. It's a very unselfish thing to do to save somebody's life, and it does always come down to that one that we save. So congratulations, and good to see you again.
Yes, sir, thank you. Appreciate it.
You are a definite hero in our community. When you save somebody's life, that means a lot. That one individual is up, walking around, and hopefully being a productive citizen in our community, all thanks to you and the heroic efforts that you had in your training and just in your everyday life, I would assume. So, again, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Next up, we have a certificate of achievement. It is with pleasure that we honor one of our own here in front of you, one of our city councilors. It doesn't happen very often, and it's one of those things that is rare, but just fills our heart with joy knowing that we are around people that, and an individual who has given so much to our community. And the 17th Annual Hall of Fame Honors Banquet will be held on Saturday, May the 9th in 2015 in Colorado Springs. Rusty Johnson will be honored receiving the Lifetime Service to Wrestling Award, given in recognition of years of dedication to the development of leadership and citizenship in and through the sport of wrestling. Rusty has been the youth coach at Alamosa since 1980. Can you just imagine, 1980? And the youth wrestling head coach since 1986. Rusty has been the assistant wrestling coach at Alamosa High School since 1994. In the following seasons, Alamosa has been state runner-up 5 times, state champion 8 times, and with the exception of 1 year, in the top 10 all other years. In the years since 1994, Rusty has been a major factor in 42 individual state championships. We are going to honor Rusty Johnson as he honors us with this certificate of achievement. It reads, "This certificate is awarded to Rusty Johnson in recognition of your induction into the Colorado chapter of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, receiving the Lifetime Service to Wrestling Award." Congratulations, Rusty. And we will go down and present this to you. Well, you can say anything you want while you're down here, Rusty. Next on the agenda, we have consent calendar A. The consent calendar allows multiple actions with one motion. Consent calendar A contains routine items which have been recommended for action by staff or advisory boards. Council may remove a consent calendar item for separate consideration. Tonight we have the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting for February the 18th, 2015.
I'll make a motion to approve consent calendar A.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on consent calendar A? Huh? Start voting, please. Sharon?
The motion carried unanimously.
Next up, we have regular business. Business brought forward by city staff, city manager, and legal. Confirmation of the mayor's appointment of new commissioners and reappointing of commissioners whose terms are expiring to the Alamosa Housing Authority. Eric?
Council, this issue comes up at a time when the Alamosa Housing Authority is short on their commissioners. The statute governing housing authorities provides for up to 9 commissioners. The bylaws for the Alamosa Housing Authority provide for between 5 and 7 commissioners, and currently there are 3 commissioners serving on the Alamosa Housing Authority. In looking at this issue, as the mayor brought to my attention in conversation and also to Heather's, the question of how the authority gets filled, I think that long in the past, the Housing Authority operated itself a little bit autonomously and selected its members by itself. State statute provides that the housing authority that was set up by a municipality, as the Alamosa Housing Authority was long ago, is to have its members appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council. So before you is a proposed slate of appointments of, I think it's 6 councilors, or commissioners I should call them, 2 of whom are reappointments for commissioners whose terms are, one expired at the end of February, one's expiring in March, and then 4 of whom are new commissioners. The state statute also provides that at least 1 commissioner should be a person who is directly served by the housing authority. In other words, someone who is a member, a resident of one of the units. So the appointments leave blank that slot. The person who is a member of the units gets appointed or nominated by a notice process to the units, and there hasn't been time for that to happen. If that happens and nobody expresses interest, that slot may be filled by someone who is not a resident, but the first choice for that slot goes to a resident. And so I don't recall, I've been city attorney now for a little over 7 years, I don't recall that a housing authority commissioner appointment has gone before council. Pushing and looking into the statute, I think that it should. The role of council is to confirm the appointments made by the mayor or not confirm. So in that sense, it's sort of like the, I guess you could say like the point at a wedding where the minister calls for anybody with any objection to speak now or forever hold their peace, if you have objections to any of the appointments. Also somewhat similar to the way the president appoints court appointments and the Senate confirms those. So the role of the council would be to look at the mayor's appointments and either confirm or decline to confirm them. So with that, unless anybody has any questions, I think we can open that up. As is stated in the background material, the names of the members appointed by the mayor are Faustine Martinez, Gaynell West, Elvie Conley, David Carson, Those are the new ones. And the reappointment of Berlene Wooten and Don Koshansik. So I will turn it over to the mayor to lead that discussion.
Thank you, Eric. One of the things that I'd like to mention is that at the present, Mrs. Hill, who was asked to be the executive director of the Housing Authority, is still has not been confirmed by HUD. And so the Housing Authority is still waiting for the executive director, who will be the secretary, to be confirmed by HUD. The seventh person that we talked about is or should be a resident member of the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority has been limited in the number of people that they have had as of late, being that Mrs. Hill was a previous board member and applied for the position as executive director. The Housing Authority is in the process of forming a resident advisory board, and from there we will hopefully find someone who will be the resident on this board, the seventh person on this board. So with that, if there's any discussion.
I had some comments, if I may.
Councilor Grego?
Yes. I've been appointed by the governor on several boards, and when you do an appointment and get a confirmation, you submit either a resume or some kind of a notice stating where you're from or what your past is, so that whoever's doing the confirmation knows who they're confirming instead of just rubber stamping it. So in this process, I know a couple of them. In fact, I know one that's sitting in the audience, but the rest, I don't know who they are. And I think it's only proper because in the past, when we appoint boards, we should at least have something in front of us telling us, well, this is Eric so-so, and he's wanting to serve, even though they're going to the mayor. But I think it's only proper for them to come to council, unless we want to have council just rubber stamping stuff like this. Secondly, I would have appreciated a phone call or something. I was on this board, and now I was appointed to this board by the council, and now apparently I'm not on the board. But I would have appreciated a call from the mayor stating that I was no longer going to be on this board, or give me some reasoning. I spoke to the city manager, and I explained to her. I says, "Well, what's going on here?" I opened up my my packet on Monday, and then she says, "Well, those are the appointments that the mayor's appointing." So apparently she called the mayor, and then the mayor called me. But stuff like this, I don't think it's proper the way that it's being done, and I don't really appreciate that. But I think in order to get a confirmation, not unless council wants to rubber stamp this, it's up to council. But I think we need to have something of a background or some kind of a statement saying, well, I want to be part of the board, or I lived in Alamosa, I live in Alamosa County, we don't know nothing about these people except for Albie, because he sits on another board that we've interviewed Albie before. He sits on a recreation board. So those are the objections I have, Eric.
I can appreciate your observations. I have had opportunity to visit with every one of these folks. Berlene Wooten has been on the board for better than 5 years. You obviously know that, and so has Dawn. You've known Faustine and you know Evie. And I know you know Dave Carson. He is the director at La Gente. Maybe the only person you don't know is Ganelle West, but you obviously know her husband, Phil West, who is the superintendent at the county for Road and Bridge. A lot of these folks have expressed interest to be on this board. A lot of them are bringing a lot of knowledge and expertise to the board. I know that in visiting with many of them, their credentials have impressed me, and since I am the one that is making the appointments, you will just have to take it on faith that my observation is something that you can count on.
Is that true, Eric, that we have to depend on? I don't think it works that way. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Just to clarify a couple things, the statute governing housing authorities sets up the appointment process the way it does. So it sets up the appointment process as mayor appoints, council confirms. It also has a provision that says that if council wishes to, it can change how it decides to do the appointments. Council has never done that. That would be an ordinance change about how you're doing that. But you could do that, for instance, with respect to city boards. Now, this is not a city board. Let's be clear about that. This is a separate governmental entity. It is not like an advisory board of the city. But with respect to city advisory boards, you have a fairly detailed policy on how you vote on bringing those candidates forward. And you have a fairly detailed practice of the putting out of an announcement in the paper and soliciting interested parties. The statutory setup doesn't have that framework. You could enact one if you wanted for the future, but you don't have one under the statute. So there's a difference in the way the city has decided to treat its boards and board appointments and the way the statute does that. But like I say, you do have the option of redefining for yourself how you're going to do it differently from the way the statute does. In answer to your question, Charlie, do you have to take the mayor's appointments without any further investigation? No. If there's someone that you have a question about, you can vote not to confirm that person until you find out more information. You can ask the mayor questions about the background of particular people and elicit that information right now. However you want to handle that.
I will be more than happy to visit with anyone on council specific to any individual that I have interviewed for this for these positions. So if you have questions, ask me, and I will. As a matter of fact, we have Mr. Conley here. Mr. Conley and I had opportunities to visit on two or three occasions. I'm not really sure how many. He has a background in housing, actually, down in New Mexico. And so one of the only things that I think he doesn't have is maybe Section 8 training. I'm not sure. But we have him available. And he also works at Adams State over at Rex Gym, which I think is an excellent filler for the board at the Housing Authority, and that we have a lot of older folks out there that might be able to take advantage of some of the offerings over at the university. Berlene Wooten has been on the board for quite a while. I know that Charlie has worked with her in the past. Or he should have, since he's been the liaison for a year now. And as far as I know, the position for the liaison is still open from council, as well as the alternate liaison. So those two positions are open. But according to what Mr. Grego told me, he said if he wasn't going to be appointed as a voting member, he didn't want to be the liaison. Was I correct there, Charlie?
Yes, it's very correct. But
Okay.
but you got right now you have a 7-member board, and then you have a liaison on top of that, so that's 8. And you said that their chart or their bylaws call for only 7 members.
The liaison is a member from the city, basically for
the liaison's not a
information.
member. The liaison is a liaison who
Yeah,
attends
he's the
meetings.
liaison.
Mr. Mayor, I have some questions.
Yes, sir.
Just so I'm confused. This is a question for Eric or the mayor or Mr. Grego. Mr. Grego stated earlier that he was on the board, and now he's no longer on the board. I want to know more about what's that about. Secondly, it's a 7-member board, but I count 6: Faustine, Gainell, Elvie, David, Berlin, and Don. Who's the 7th? Is that the mayor, or is that who would the 7th be then? And then, if Mr. Grego is no longer on the board, why and where was the process with that? Thank you.
I can try to address that. Charlie knows his role on the board better, but my understanding is that Charlie has been the liaison, and which is not a commissioner. It's the council liaison for the board, and that's been an issue, I think, from Mr. Grego saying, "Hey, why am I going to these meetings if I can't vote?" Which is a good, that's what liaisons do. They go to meetings to report to City Council what's happening at the meetings. The 7th position is the one that's being held open because of the statutory requirement that at least one person be a resident of a unit in the authority. So we don't have that person because the process for selecting that person is to have the resident advisory board nominate such a person, and the authority currently doesn't have a resident advisory board. So that process can't happen until they get their ducks in a row and get that moving.
Councillor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. God, this turned into a little bit of a mess, but I don't want to overlook the fact that the people that we're considering are volunteers, and this is a volunteer board, and I don't want any of the other discussion to minimize their willingness to participate in this board, and I do appreciate this, people stepping forward in our community to go on these volunteer boards, and it's a difficult thing to be on these boards, and I know all of them. Some of them very little, but I know all of them, and I think they're all going to serve very well. I don't know what the process was and how, if we notified the people that weren't going to be on the board, but really I don't think I'm connected with that, and I hope we're handling that in a professional manner, but I sure don't want these appointments minimized by the way, however the appointments or how people were removed from the board was handled. So, and that's my only comment. I commend these people for volunteering, for being interviewed. I appreciate their community service, and I think that's what we need to concentrate on.
I think for clarification purposes, if I'm not mistaken, some of these, some folks actually resigned from the board, and the board has been basically running on 4 individuals, and with the appointment of one of the board members, that left 3. And so my responsibility was to try to bring this board back up into where at least they could have a quorum, because once in a while they just can't even get a quorum together, and the business of the Housing Authority is very important, especially for the 199 units that we have out there. I don't believe that Councillor Grego is being omitted from being a commissioner, because he was not a commissioner during the time that I can remember. Maybe he was a commissioner in the 90s. Charlie, you were, I believe you were even their chairperson of the board at one time. So that was many, many years ago, and I think that position was basically given up by Councillor Grego. But I hope that kind of enlightens us to what the process was. Councillor Gillespie.
Yes, I agree with Councillor Johnson. I think most of us know most of these people. I know all but one, and one person I have not met. I know enough about that I have no objection to appointing any of these people to this Housing Authority board, so I have no objections. Is there any other discussion?
I had still some comments,
okay,
if I may. You know, I also agree with Councilor Johnston, but here about a month or so, we went through a policy of appointments and all this other stuff, and we kind of drew direction on how that was supposed to happen, who was supposed to be contacted and so forth. And now all of a sudden, we're not following policy, you know, and that was, if I believe, the policy was brought up by our mayor, saying that we should have a policy as far as presenting people with plaques and stuff like that and appointments. It was all pretty much in the same thing. And that's what bothers me. Not so much they're good quality people, and like Johnson says, I appreciate that they're coming up to serve in these boards, but the way things are processed I might personally feel are wrong, and I don't think it should be that way. And if it's going to continue that way, I think maybe we need to draw up another policy to follow that policy. And, you know, pretty soon we'll be policied out here. But I don't think it's right the way it's being handled. And with that, like I said, I don't have a problem with these people too either, you know. And I appreciate that they've come up and they want to serve. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to add, Charlie, that this isn't our policy. This is the bylaws for the Housing Authority. We didn't write this policy.
No, but there's a policy as far as...
We're following their bylaws.
There's a policy that we come up with where is if the mayor decides to do this and that, it should come to council. That's why we're right now, we're confirming this, right?
I think there's been different discussions in regards to policies. As Eric referenced, there's the policy that council's created in regards to your appointment to advisory boards, which includes, you know, the process, the promotion of it, the application, the interviews, those types of things. The more recent policy that we've discussed is in relation to not appointments, but if there's going to be a certificate of appreciation, if there's going to be those types of presentations. So that is not related to appointments. And so then the third item that seems to be getting discussed is then the item Eric discussed from the state statutes of if council wanted to create a different policy or even add a policy that gives more direction on how this process works, that is an option you can do through an ordinance. But at the point that it stands right now, the wording is that the mayor's appointments as confirmed by council. There's not much more depth to the process that's laid out in there.
I'd like to make an observation. In the past, I want to thank Heather and Eric for all the time that they have put in surrounding this issue, because actually this was one of those issues that kind of came upon me, and as you can see, we're basically confirming the entire board for the Housing Authority, and it's something that just happened. It's not something that I wanted to happen this way, but in the interest of transparency and clarity, this thing comes to council for approval. I don't ever remember it being that way in the past. I don't ever remember any other mayor bringing this to council for authorization or confirmation. And not to say that, you know, it didn't happen, maybe it did, but I would certainly hope that we can move forward on this and get these people confirmed and get the Housing Authority Board back where it needs to be.
To correct you, Mayor, Mayor Rogers appointed several people there on that board, and the process she used was and it wasn't as clear as Eric has cleared it now, but back then she did the appointments to some of the positions there, but it wasn't as clear like now that Eric's from step to step. So
I think as we discussed it at the staff level, it was clear that the previous mayor had made appointments. we could not remember if it had been confirmed by council. So it's
No.
a very unfortunate situation where I think prior to that, we're not sure the mayor was even making appointments prior to that. So it's something that we've kind of been researching and evolving, and it probably has not been handled 100% the way as the state statute's written. And so it's something that we're trying to correct and get back on track with what it's supposed to be.
I certainly appreciate that. I don't want to be known as a mayor that, that didn't do things in the light of day. And so with that, if there's any further, just go ahead, Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to echo what Councilor Gillespie and Councilor Johnson said. Nothing against these folks. I'm glad for the work that Eric and Heather did. So now we know the process going into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. If there's no other questions or comments, I will move that we confirm the mayor's appointments of new commissioners and reappoint the commissioners whose terms are expired to the Alamosa Housing Authority. Do I need to name the members in the motion?
Please do.
It will be, the new members will be Faustine Martinez, Gaynell West, Alvy Conley, and David Carson. The reappointment of Berlene Wooten and Dawn, can you help me with that last name?
Don Kazansky.
Kazansky.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the confirmation of the appointments to the Housing Authority? Seeing none, start voting, please. Sharon?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, Council. I appreciate your consideration in this, and I thank you for your trust in me. I'm sure that the commissioners will be happy to get to work at the next meeting. So next up, we have committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. I went to the school board meeting on Monday, and there's a couple things. Councilor Johnson will like this. They approved money to purchase new wrestling mats, as they're pretty old, I think 15 years old. So, and that helps out with fungus and all that type of stuff. So that's good. They approved a 2015-2016 school calendar. There was some discussion about that as far as when PLCs will be, and PLCs are professional learning communities, and it looks like they're going to be on Wednesdays. So though I think there's going to be half days on Wednesdays, but don't quote me on that. The assistant superintendent stated that she's continuing to work on partnerships with Adams State to improve those. Some examples she mentioned were she would like to see Adams State's Alamosa students involved in History Day, which is every January, and she would like to have more Apple students who are student teachers and those going through the education program. She would like to see their numbers increased in the schools here in Alamosa to help out our teachers. They approved the snow day from last week, and they did not approve funding for the veggie program, which is a garden that would be at Boyd School. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Griego?
I had one on the airport board. The terminal's coming along. They should complete that by the end of March. By April 15th, they should have a transition completed. They're still looking at planning the demolition of the old airport terminal, and they'll still be working on the parking lot. They're having this is kind of early, we'll probably get more notice on this. They're having the air show on July the 11th. And also they have finished their wildlife assessment. And in some of the discussion, they're still having problems with the deer out there. And the deer are coming from the cemetery. So we might eventually have some kind of discussion on maybe putting up a larger fence there to help them accommodate the deer from coming from the cemetery. And I ran this through our city manager, and she's going to probably look at it and see maybe what the costs are, what direction council wants on something like this, but their wildlife assessment, like I said, is completed, and one of the problems was the deer population coming onto the airport, and they're coming from the cemetery. So, any questions? Thank you.
Councilor Stefano.
I also met with the tree board today and happy to say that they got their grants for planting more trees around the city. Looking good, so happy for them.
Thank you. Next up, we'll move on to staff announcements. Heather?
We actually have quite a few for you tonight from several individuals. I'll start with mine. I've received communication from the representatives of the Senior Center Board. They have continued their discussions on if they would like the city to maintain ownership or execute the reverter that should return the facility back to them. They've indicated that they would like to continue their ownership. When we had the council discussion on the budget and the outside funding, we had allowed that amount, the same as last year, to be included should they make this decision. And so what I will do is execute that agreement, get the mayor's signature for the outside funding, and then also look at the transfer of the building back. If it's something that we have the proper documentation, it might be something we can handle at the staff level, or we'll bring it back for a council vote. But that is the decision they've reached. And, you know, as I promised to them, it was something that we wanted to have as an offer for them, so they could focus more on the programming instead of on building maintenance. But if they feel like maintaining that ownership is important, we're still in support of them. So we'll move forward with that. The Pink Elephant, all of it is down. We will be working with our partners, and I say we, but I don't want to take credit away from Randy. I know he has been working very hard on coordinating this, and he will be working with his partners on this, on the removal of the debris, hauling it to the dump. I know there's been a lot of discussion out there as far as where the material is going. It is not being deposited on any landowner's property or anything like that. All the permits have been received, and it all is being hauled to the proper landfill. It's being very much relied upon by only being charged at cost for those partners to haul that and to donate some of their time to that measure. So it's a project that's still very dependent on people stepping up from the community to make it possible, and we're very grateful for that. So that will continue to get cleaned up. I wanted to let you know that I attended the City Managers Conference last week. Part of that attendance, I met with Sam Mamet and CML. They've selected a small group of cities to potentially go through a economic study, a fiscal study in regards to what might be drivers over our long-term budgets, looking backwards and looking forward. And they wanted to select communities that represent different sizes, different economies, front range, agriculture, those types of things. And so it's something that I think if it can help bring more information to what drives local spending and can create conversations around that, I think it could be very helpful. So at this point in time, with how it's being presented to us, I think it could be beneficial for us to be one of the case studies that they use. They've promised to limit the impact on staff time. They are aware that, especially in smaller communities, we can't just give them someone for a week to do research. So they're going to limit the impact on staff and keep us fully involved on what they're finding and those types of things. So I wanted to make council aware of that. Also on the conference, there's two items that are somewhat connected that are starting what I would say to become trends, and I want to make sure council's aware of it. It was also presented at last year's conference. And looking at the state demographer information and also the state economist, by 2020, we can expect potentially the state budget to be hurting. And the reasons for that is the bubble of retirees at the national level hitting some of the federal Medicare and Medicaid, and how that impact will trickle down to the state. And because of the state's budget being set up the way it is, They can't cut into education. They can't cut into some of those other areas. The only places they have the ability to cut into to cover these costs that are mandated will be higher education, transportation, and possible reallocation of the mineral impact. So obviously, for these next few years, from a city perspective, we want to make sure that we're garnering our resources to take advantage of any grants that are available now, any projects we have that involve CDOT. We also want to make sure our partners such as ASU are strong and ready to withstand what might be coming in some future years. Given that it's been fully detailed for at least 2 years, if not longer, it's probably something we need to make sure we're taking seriously. The other discussion that's occurring among some cities is as you have this demographic occur, they start spending more on services and less on consumables. So for cities whose budget is largely based on sales tax, what that means is we can see a decline in what actual goods are being purchased. So some cities are looking at not necessarily looking to increase their taxes, but looking to diversify their taxes. And so at the state level, there's these discussions going on. Some cities are further along in those discussions than others. So I thought it was worthwhile to make sure council's aware of those items that are being discussed. The glass crusher, we are moving in 2 speeds on the glass crusher. On one level, we are moving quickly to see if we can secure some grants and outside funding, and some of that looks very positive. Pat has been following every lead he can on potential donations or used glass crushers and all of those. And so we are still being very aggressive in that area, and we plan to have it for this year. Where we are being a little more conservative on our efforts is as this becomes more well-known, it's becoming very apparent to us that there's a lot of interest in the entire valley for this type of service, not only just this, but in recycling in general. And what we are trying to be cautious about is it's our residents that are obviously footing the bill for this and paying for the operations of it. And so we need to try to set up a system to where, while it's great for the environment if the whole valley is bringing their glass here, we need to try to set up a system that's not burdensome, but also is protecting the use to those residents who are actually using it. Now, there could be opportunities for IGAs and other types of things, but we don't want to go into this blind and have some unanticipated consequences of people bringing glass that's from further away. So I wanted to make sure council's aware of that. During your retreat, you discussed wanting to move ahead with exploring the idea of the plastic bag fee. Pat brought up to me that ASU is having an Earth Fair in April. That's going to be one tool we might use to try to get word out that we're going to be having these meetings, in addition to sending mail, direct letters to the businesses that could be impacted. I would anticipate us to look at holding these public meetings at the end of April. So if you have any other events that are occurring that can be helpful to get the word out, let us know, and we'll take advantage of those types of things. Chief Judge Swift has requested that the chief and I serve on the Alamosa County Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee. That's a lot of words. It will be a new committee. I think the overall goal and what these committees do in other communities is to improve the local criminal justice center. I think it's to bring people from different backgrounds and how can we tackle some of the crime that's in the community, some through normal means and others through not normal means, and to get creative. And so I'm grateful that the chief and I will be able to participate on this committee. In regards to advisory boards, we will be sending out a letter April 1st for those vacancies that either exist or for the terms that will be expiring. And so that will be starting off that round of that process. I also want to commend the Public Works crews on their snow removal. I know Pat was also out on a plow, and they were working a lot of shifts and really trying to get those roads cleared and everything for our residents. So wanted to mention that. The Chamber annual meeting is this Friday. Next week, I will be attending an economic development, marketing, and attraction training for 2.5 days. In March 13th through the 15th is the Monte Vista Crane Festival. And then the Great Sand Dunes has the entrance free days, April 18th through the 19th. And I guess they do this periodically throughout the year. And before I turn it over to someone else, I want to mention the yellow folders that you have in front of you. For our city clerk process, what those represent is after Cecilia, our HR director, and myself have reviewed the applications, those would be what we would consider the top 10. We didn't make copies of all of them. You do have a spreadsheet in there that contains every applicant. So if there is an applicant that you feel maybe should have been considered for the top 10, you can request that we send you that resume and anything like that. This is confidential information. So I would just request that we keep this confidential. In regards to the process, I would probably recommend, if you're okay with it, that we set a closed work session before the next meeting to discuss who you feel should be the finalist and to discuss the specifics of the process, such as what the interview questions should be, if we do an assessment center, those types of specific details that would qualify from a closed session perspective. And we could answer any questions you at that time have about any of these applicants or anything like that as well. So for that, before I have other staff come up and give an update, I guess I'd like to just see a head nod if that sounds appropriate to set the session for the 18th, either 5:30 or 6, to review who you guys believe should be brought in for the next phase of the process. Any concerns?
I don't have concerns with that, but I had another comment.
Okay.
Are you ready for questions or comments?
Yes.
Okay.
We do have more, but yes.
I know, but
Okay.
before you switch it up to somebody else, you talked about the future impact economically that we're going to go into. In reading the paper today with that new possible sales tax for this new center, what kind of impact is that going to have on our community?
I think.
And I know it's kind of hard to look at it now, but if you raise the sales tax, is that going to drive more people over that mountain? Or I don't know if you have a feel for it or any comment on that.
I can give you what my opinion is, but I can guarantee you there's going to be people that have a different opinion. I think if we were in a suburban area, I think people are much more attuned to what the different sales taxes are, because you can drive 5 miles and be in a different community with a different sales tax. I think probably what drives people to leave the valley right now to shop, it may be more from the choice of options of what they can purchase, such as clothing or those types of things, than what the actual sales tax is. I'm torn somewhat on the Justice Center in that I think it's very clear that we have issues both with the current court building and with the jail system, the detention area, very serious issues, and they do need to be addressed. It's a question of, do you want to look at it to be paid for from a sales tax perspective, where we have visitors that pay a portion of that, or would you have it want to be funded, those improvements, through a property tax, which then is funded entirely by residents?
City Manager, you said that time after time, but I have not heard anybody talk about it that way, that either we do it sales tax wise or we're going to do it property tax wise.
I don't think anyone wants to do that, but I think that's an option that is available that people need to know can be executed.
I know this is one of those unfunded mandates that are being pushed on us. But by the same token, I think we as a city need to be prepared for this, because as we look at doing different projects in the future, and if this comes into pass and we start losing the sales tax, I think we're going to have an impact. So I would just alert ourselves to, now that we start preparing for the future here and doing different projects, big projects, that now that fund balance, that scares me now. Now, I'd rather hold on to that fund balance now than like we had talked before, spending some of that on streets and that. Because this, I think it's going to have a big impact, and I hope we're ready for it.
I have a few more things, but if there's any other questions. In regards to grants, and that would be a good tie-in for Pat to come up and give his update, but there are 2 grants we're planning on applying through, both through DOLA. They're through 2 different funding sources, so we can apply at the same time for them. One of them is going to be for the comprehensive plan update. Right now we have that in our CIP for $150,000, so we will be going through the planning portion of DOLA to request a grant for that, and it's due April 1st. And the other project that's currently listed in the CIP is our parks building project, which is currently in the CIP for $190,000. So we're hopeful that will be well received by DOLA, and that we can bring in some additional revenue sources there. And then that ties into Pat's successful achievement of getting the first mineral, or not the first, but the mineral impact grant for 8th Street.
Good evening, Council. You may have seen Heather's email last week. We received the official letter of award from DOLA for the mineral impact grant that we requested last December. We received the full amount of the request. It was $165,000. That'll be used for the drainage specific aspects of the West 8th Street project. So it doesn't create additional monies in the general fund. It expands and enhances a project that we already had planned. Mm-hmm. So we'll be able to run that project farther east. I believe, I can't say for sure until we actually bid the job and I see the line item cost, but I think we'll be able to run it all the way east to where we have to stop, so we don't compromise the improvements we'll make when we realign the intersection. And we may even potentially be able to do a block or 2 between West 8th and West 7th and start chewing into the country to the north there.
I appreciate that, Pat, because this has been a project that we've been working on for a lot of years. And now the people in that area appreciate what has evolved out there. And for you to go out and get a grant like this, it's very, very well appreciated for that and for the people in that area.
Well, thank you.
Also, in regards to a grant perspective, obviously Pat has been very aggressive. He's also submitted for a grant for the glass crusher, as well as preparing some of these other ones that are upcoming. In regards to grants overall, we are looking and had discussions with Michaela as far as adding maybe some grant responsibilities to her position. So obviously every department will still monitor their unique areas, but we can also have Michaela looking to do research, maybe potentially drafting, those types of things as well, because I think we really want to make sure we're taking advantage of grant opportunities. Amanda, I think you wanted to address, I think Amanda was getting some questions on certain things regarding utility bills and wanted to give an update.
I just wanted to let council know we've had a huge success with our web payments, which we anticipated. It'll be a couple months before we can actually see what the true impact of that is, as people are just starting to register. One of the main things that we've gotten a lot of phone calls on, though, is whether or not our customers can call in with a phone payment. That is not something that we have set up. So our options, we have 3 options. They can either come in or mail your payment, they can do their web payment, or they still have the option of signing on for the automatic withdrawal. So just to kind of clear some of that up, I think our customers got somewhat confused, being that they were able to do it online, that we also had the availability to be able to do it by phone. So that still isn't an option, but I'm really excited, and my staff's excited at how much interest we've had on the web payments.
Thank you, Amanda.
And then last but not least, we have Eric.
Batting cleanup. Just wanted to let you know that on behalf of the City of Alamosa, I have requested that CML file an amicus brief, otherwise known as a friend of the court brief, in a court case that we have in front of the Supreme Court that'll be being briefed in probably April, May. This relates to the accidental shooting involving Steve Bleck that some of you who have been on council will probably recall. Those of you who are new may not. He was a client at one of the hotels, and the police department had received a call from a mental health worker that he was intoxicated, threatening suicide, and likely armed. And when the police went in to do take him into emergency custody, then Officer Jeff Martinez's firearm accidentally discharged, shooting him in the leg. So he sued the city, Chief Jackson, Officer Martinez, Officer Anderson, and anybody else he could think of. And his case was dismissed in federal court on governmental immunity grounds. He then sued in state court just against Officer Martinez on grounds of willful and wanton conduct, and that suit went forward. The district court in Alamosa County allowed that to proceed and did not dismiss the suit against Officer Martinez on governmental immunity grounds. That's now working its way through to the Supreme Court, and so that's where we have asked CML to step in and in support of the city's position, which is being covered by Defense Counsel, but in support of the city's position that governmental immunity should apply to police officers in that kind of situation of an accidental discharge.
Thank you, Eric. Next up, we have council comment. Councilor Johnson? Oh, Councilor Gillespie, I'm sorry.
Did I beat you, Rusty? You did. I'd like to thank Randy Wright for his work on the Pink Elephant. How glad I am to see that building demolished. It's been on council and the city for, I think, going on 5-6 years now. And it's been a battle, and I know many of you shared that battle, but I'm very happy to see that demolition, so thank you.
Councilor Johnson?
I shouldn't have let you beat me, Greg, because I was going to say the same thing. That building going down was like a weight off of our shoulders, I believe. So much went into that. Staff, a lot of our staff was involved. Pat was involved, Heather. Thank everyone that was involved in that, because it was a tremendous feat, and it was nice to see that thing finally come down. Also, Pat's crews, I was out shoveling my sidewalk or my driveway, and it felt like every 20 minutes I was shoveling a foot of snow. So removing that much snow wasn't a small deed off of our street. So really appreciate how the crews handled that. Everything I got from the public wasn't in town, it was county roads or state roads. So I think we did a really good job. Thanks a bunch for that. And then thanks for the certificate. You guys surprised me tonight. I can't believe I didn't get a heads up, or it wasn't on the agenda where I could kind of even know that was going to happen. But I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilor Griego?
I thought, no, okay. I'm kind of echoing Councilor Johnson's comments on the snow removal. We appreciate what you did, Pat. There's still areas, I asked the city manager about the highway, the Main Street, where I guess the state is still responsible, but just for the middle part of it, I guess. And I know I'd gotten some calls from some of the business people on maybe even removing that where the people park in front of those businesses. And I told them we would try to get to it as soon as possible. Another thing too, there's areas where they're not shoveling the snow, sidewalks. And I think Amber was going to approach those people and contact them, make sure that happens, because that was also brought to my attention that there's large sections of areas that they weren't getting shoveled, but yet an 82-year-old person was getting a ticket for not shoveling. And I brought it to our city manager's attention, and she was going to look into that. Thank you.
So we are still looking into the 82-year-old. In regards to the other, when that complaint came in to us on the other property owner, unfortunately it's still snowing. And so the way our ordinance reads is really it doesn't become a violation until 24 hours after the snow ends. So obviously, we apply enforcement equally, and, if we're asking one property owner to do it, we would be asking the other. It's just unfortunate that complaint came in while it was still snowing, so there was very little we could do in enforcement at that point in time.
Thank you, Heather. And just a brief comment about the Colorado Municipal League Conference in June. If you haven't registered, please do so as soon as possible, because a lot of those classes and lunches fill up very fast, and we certainly wouldn't want to go up there and not be able to eat lunch. So please do that. And if there are no further council comments, I will adjourn this meeting. Meeting adjourned.